Hello students, in continuity of chapter number 13, organisms and populations. Now we are going to discuss about further population interactions like parasitism, commensalism, mutualism and amensalism. Let's start with parasitism. You know very well about parasites and this type of relationship known as parasitism. We are considering parasitic mode of the various organisms, their plants or animals for their requirement. It is not surprising that parasitism has evolved in so many taxonomic groups from plants to higher vertebrates. Many parasites they have evolved to be host specific. It means that they can parasites only a single species of host. It means that only on one host they depend. It is like that. In such a way that both host and the parasite tend to co-evolve. That is, in the host evolves specific mechanism for rejecting or resisting the parasite. The parasite has to evolve mechanism to counteract and neutralize them in order to be successful with the same host species. In accordance with their life cycle, parasites evolve special adaptation such as loss of unnecessary sense organs. This point is important here because when they depend on their host for various requirement, actually some adaptations they are evolved in these parasites. First, one of this adaptation is loss of unnecessary sense organ. That is presence of adhesive organs or suckers to climb onto the host. It is required for this same purpose, parasitism purpose. Sometimes loss of digestive system and high reproductive capacity. So, when this type of relationship develop in living organism, at that time in this kind of organisms which depends on host for its various requirement, they show some adaptation. It may be like loss of unnecessary sense organ, hooks and suckers, loss of digestive system and maybe high reproductive capacity. So these are main adaptations of parasites which are observed during such a type of interaction, or we can say population interactions. Life cycle of parasites are often complex, involving one or two intermediate hosts or vectors to facilitate parasitism of its primary host. It means that it is not like that only one host is required to fulfill their life cycle, but it may be one or more than one. It means two hosts for complete their life cycle during this relationship. Human liver fluke, as we know very well, is an example of this type of parasitism. Human liver fluke. So, one type of parasite depends on two intermediate hosts. It means that a snail and fish to complete their life cycle. We know about life cycle of mosquito also. You have studied this type of life cycle also. Malaria parasite, it needs vector, that is mosquito, to spread to other host. Majority of parasites harm the host. They may be reduce the survival, growth and reproduction of the host and reduce its population density also. They might render the host more vulnerable to predation by making it physically weak. In our surrounding also, many examples of this type of interaction between plant and animals. It's a parasitism type of relationship and here this type of characteristics are observed. Now on the basis of this type of characteristics, parasites, they feed on the external surface of the host. Suppose at that time they are known as ectoparasite, and when they live inside the body of host, at that time they are known as endoparasites. So on the basis of these characteristics, mainly two type of parasites are there, ectoparasites and endoparasites. Most familiar example of this group are that is ectoparasitism, lice, human and ticks on dogs. Many marine fishes, they are infected with ectoparasitism. Cuscuta is also very well known example of total parasites plant. Cuscuta is total parasite plant. It's commonly found growing on hedge plants. The host is actually plant or tree is having chlorophyll in its leaves. Okay, and this Cuscuta actually lack of chlorophyll. It cannot prepare its food itself by photosynthesis process. So that's why for this purpose of nutrition requirement, it depends on host plant at that time. If we talk about mosquito, here the female mosquito is not considered as a parasite. It's not need its blood for reproduction purpose. Endoparasites, they live inside the host body at different sites. It may be inside body some organs or some sites like liver, kidney, lungs, red blood cell and some other site. Life cycle of endoparasites more complex because of their extreme speciation. Their morphological and anatomical features are greatly simplified while emphasizing their reproductive setting. So this way we can say there are two type of parasites, ectoparasites and endoparasites on the basis of their characteristics. Brood parasitism in birds is fascinating example of parasitism in which the parasite's bird lays its eggs in the nest of its host and lets the host incubate them. It's a very common example. During the course of evolution, the eggs of the parasite bird have evolved to resemble the host egg in size and color to reduce the chance of the host bird detecting the foreign eggs and ejecting them from the nest. So it's a very interesting example of this type of brood parasitism. It is found in such a type of bird. We can take example of cuckoo, quail and the crow. It's our surrounding, we can find this type of very common example of brood parasitism. So here parasitism, such a type of relationship where two organisms, their interaction is such a kind, host and parasite, and generally this type of parasites, they harm their host. Now one more interaction, population interaction, which is known as mutualism. This type of interaction confers benefit on both interacting species. It means that in such a kind of population interaction or relationship in which two organisms are involved, both are benefited from each other. That is interesting, and so many examples are also observed in our nature of this kind. Lichens, you know very well about this type of plant. Lichen represent an intimate mutualism relationship between fungus and photosynthesizing algae or cyanobacteria. This type of relationship is actually in which both fungi and algae, they are benefited from each other. Another type of relation is observing mycorrhiza. It is association between fungi and the roots of higher plants. The fungi help the plant the absorption of essential nutrients from the soil, while the plant in turn, it provides what to fungi? with energy yielding carbohydrates. So both organisms, they get benefit from each other. That is a mutualism type of relationship. The most spectacular and evolutionary examples of mutualism are found in plant-animal relationships also. So, examples of this type of relationship in between plants and animals are also found. Plants need the help of animal for pollinating their flowers and dispersing their seeds. Animals obviously have to be paid fees for this type of service that plant expect from that. Plants offer rewards, or we can say fees. One type of they are paying fees in the form of pollen and nectar for pollinators and juicy and nutritious fruits for seed dispersers. But the mutually beneficial system should also be safeguard, such a type of safeguard that against this type of cheaters also. It is very interesting. For example, animals that try to this type of steal nectar without aiding in pollination. So we can say this type of plant animal interaction often involve co-evolution of the mutualism, that is the evolution of the flower and its pollinator. Species are tightly linked with one another. In many species of fig, is another example. In many species of fig trees, there is a tight one-to-one relationship with the pollinator species of wasp. It means that given fig species can be pollinated only by the partners wasp species and no other species. The female wasp, that is female wasp, that uses the fruit not only as an this type of oviposition, matlab egg lying site, but uses the developing seeds within the fruit for nourishing its larva. The wasps pollinators the fig this type of inflorescence while searching for suitable egg laying sites. In return for the favor of pollination, the fig effects the wasp some of its developing seeds as food for the developing wasp larva. More example of orchid. Orchid, it shows a type of a diversity of floral pattern, many of which have evolved to attract the right pollinator insect, bees and bumblebees, and ensure guaranteed pollination by it. Not all orchids offer rewards. The Mediterranean orchid, then sexually desiccated to get pollination done by a species of bee. One petal of its flower bees and is uncanny resembles to the female of the bee in size, color and marking. Male bee is attracted to what it as a female is pseudo copulates with the flower, and during that process deusted with pollen from the flower. So this type of relationship is observed here. So we can say in our surrounding, in nature, so many this type of population interactions are observed. Amensalism is also one type of population interaction between two different species, in which one species is harmed and the other is neither harmed or nor benefited. It is important to understand here. Here, one species is harmed and other species is neither harmed or no benefit. Here examples: in bacterial culture, after few days fungus growth will be there on it like penicillium, and secretion of chemical will kill bacteria but no benefits to fungi. So here we can understand in this type of relationship, here one species is harmed, the other species is neither harmed or not getting this type of benefit from each other. Commensalism is also one type of population interaction. It is interaction in which one species benefits and the other is neither harmed or nor benefited. Orchid growing is an epiphyte on a mango branch and branches. This type of growing on the back of a well benefit, while neither the mango tree nor the well derives any apparent benefit. Cattle, ergot and grazing cattle in close association site are most likely to catch if you live in farm rural area at that time is a classic example of commensalism. Ergot always forest close to where the cattle are grazing. Because of this, cattle are grazing. The cattle they move, stir up, and flush out insects from the vegetation that otherwise might be difficult for the ergot to find the catch. Another example of commensalism is the interaction between sea anemone, that is the singing tentacles, and the clownfish that lies among them. Fish get protection from predator which stay away from the stinging tentacles. So, this type of anemone does not appear to derive any benefit by hosting the clownfish. So, it's very interesting to study about this population interactions observed in our nature, in our surrounding environment. Such a type of interaction between two different type of species. Here, this type of relationship is known as population interaction. On the basis of their characteristics, they are of different type of population interaction. As you know now very well, it may be this type of relationship is like mutualism, okay, where one species getting benefit and other in harm. So competition, both they are in harm. Predation, so one is benefited and another is getting harm during this. Parasitism also host and parasite like relationship where oftenly, mostly one species is harmed during this relationship. Then we have studied this type of commensalism, such a type of relationship here, and amensalism. So, in our nature, in our surrounding, between different type of living organism, such a type of relationship develop, that is in natural habitat on this earth, and so in between different type of organisms, maybe plants, animals, or plant animals, and so all examples these are population interactions.